This is the handout I gave you last week. And what is working capital? Can someone tell me what is working capital? Yes, they have forgotten. Today they will send it for uploading. We just shared the test last week only. So when I inquired, they have forgotten to upload. So they will do it today. I will remind them tomorrow as well. So you can get the handout, right? So working capital is the money required for day-to-day operation of the business. So it is basically current assets and current liabilities. Okay. So I will stop presenting. Tell me, is the board clear? If I write here, is it clear to you? Can you see the board? Right. So right, if you can't see, please let me know. Working capital equals current assets minus current liabilities, right? This is working capital. So this is the very blind form of saying what is working capital. We have several things under working capital. Right? So we have gross working capital. Which is equal to current assets, right? Then we have net working capital, which is equal to current assets minus current liabilities. This is the portion of current assets which has been financed through long-term funding. You can remember the balance sheet: fixed assets, current liabilities, right? Then net current assets, so current liabilities, total assets financed by equity or net worth. Equity plus reserve here is net worth, and term loans. This is called total capital, right? So this portion is equity capital, this portion is debt capital, right? So this one, which is current assets minus current liabilities, which is the net working capital, represent how much of the day-to-day funds has been financed through equity capital or debt capital, that is long term, right? Then when we talk about working capital, we have two things: permanent working capital and variable working capital, right? Permanent working capital is the day-to-day funds we need, which has to be of permanent nature. It has to be there. Like I gave you example saying, okay, a grocery shop need to have a sack of rice, sack of dal, some dry fish, some milk powder, like that. That has to be there, right? So in season, so sometimes you can have more than one, so that whatever the items we have to have has to be financed by a long-term fund, If you finance those kind of things with a short-term funding like a TOD or a short-term loan, you have to pay it within 3 months, 4 months, 2 months. So which is not possible. We can't take out that money which you invest there. Think about a distributor. You go out to the market on the first day of your sale. You go to the market and you start selling, right? When you start sales, we have two things: cash sales and credit sales. We create debtors here, right? So you sell 100 units, 3 units will be cash and 97 units will be credit. So this money you will not get. You will have to wait for another turn to get this money. You may get a post-dated check, or you may get a bill to bill order. That means what do you mean by bill to bill? Can someone tell me? If you are doing credit, you need to know the market terms, right? Otherwise, customers will come and speak to you and it will become Greek to you. Bill to bill means I go to the market, give the goods, and I will give the invoice or the bill. They will sign on my bill. They will not give me an instrument like a post-dated check or anything. They will not give me cash. They will not give me a check. No, they just sign on the invoice, right? So I have to come back, then go back to the same shop after a week or two and take the money from the previous bill and issue goods again. Again he will sign. Always there will be a bill to be paid. That is called bill to bill. You take the money from the previous bill and give goods again for a new bill. That's called bill to bill. That is very risky because it is not a legal instrument, right? So when you are going on this way, there will be some money invested in the market. That money will not come to your hand unless until you stop the business and start collecting everything. So this kind of investments you can't do with a short-term funding. So it has to be long-term funding. So we call that portion of the working capital as permanent working capital. Normally, we assume that it is an empirical thing. 40% of the working capital is permanent. 60% would be variable, right? Then you can see here. Then I drew a graph there. You can see this. You have your fixed assets growing with time and investment, right? You have your fixed assets. What are fixed assets? Land, building, machinery, like that. So when you increase your capacity, your production goes up, right? You are increasing your machinery, so your production goes up, so your permanent working capital goes up. Then the same way your variable working capital also goes up, right? So when we come to funding, this portion, that means entirety of fixed assets and permanent working, part of permanent working capital, has to be funded by term capital, which can be equity or term loans. This part of variable working capital and part of the permanent working capital has to be funded by short-term funding, right? Okay. Then we discuss about what is working capital management. This working capital, what is working capital management? Working capital management is managing current assets and current liabilities. Basically, current assets, we have inventory, debtors, current liabilities, we have creditors. Managing these three items is called working capital management, right? Then we went on to discuss about operating cycle. Can anyone remember what is operating cycle is? What is the meaning of operating cycle? There is the time gap between investing resources to purchase and collecting your cash from the debtors, right? Right? You go to the market today, bring raw material, then that raw material will remain as work in progress. Then you have finished goods, then you have debtors, right? So you put money here into the business. It will initially be in the form of raw material. When it is, I'm talking about the manufacturing industry, then raw material will become work in progress. When you are doing a shirt, cloth, the material will be the raw material. Then when you issue that to the production floor, it will be parts and pieces. So when you enter to the production flow, it is only this part. Then you have to saw this. Then these things separately, like that, the shirt will be produced. That process is the work in progress. Then once you produce the finished good, you will hold finished good for a while, because as and when you produce, you can't sell. You have to have some minimum stock remaining. We should be able to feed the market for some time without interruption. Then once your goods goes out of the factory, it becomes a credit sales. So it is debtors. So from the time you invest on resources and collection of money, cash from the debtors, this period is called operating cycle, right? Then similarly, you give credit to the market, you also can get credit from the market, right? You also can get credit from the market, right? This is your creditors. You get, we say this is 10 days This is 3 days. This is 14 days. This is 30 days. Right? You get 7 days credit from the market. Right? So your operating cycle would be 10, 13, 27, 57 days. 57 days. Right? You are getting 7 days credit from the market. So actually, though you bring in your raw material, you don't pay. You give a check and come. Right? On the 7th day, your check will come to the bank. So actual investment is from this date to this date. Right? So cash cycle, actual investment of your money. Cash cycle equals operating cycle minus credit period, right? Which is 57 minus 7, which is 50 days in this scenario, right? So working capital cycle is the time between investment on resources and collecting of cash from the debtors. This is the operating side. You go to the market with cash today and you bring raw material, work in progress, finished good debtors, you collect your money from here and you get your money. So this is operating cycle. If you invest cash on the first day, then both of them are the same. But if you take credit from the market, you get credit. You get your raw material, but you don't invest your money. So you will be investing money only on the 7th day. So actual investment is only this much. Cash cycle equals operating cycle minus credit period. Right? So this is called the working capital cycle. So whenever you are giving a short-term facility, you need to know the cash cycle. We call the working capital cycle. We say every 50th day, you are getting money as per this calculation. Right? The customer comes to you and asks for short-term facility. You give 45 days. Or you give 90 days to settle. What will happen to you? Loan will be due on this date, but customer will not get money for another 5 days. So loan will be always in arrears, and on 50th or 51st day, he will settle you. 90 days, money has come out of the process, he has reinvested, and it will come again on this day. Right? Again, 10 days arrears. Right? Further, we have a problem of diversifying money. He may take, once the business person has more money in their hand, they will do different things. They will go and invest in some other thing. They will not always do the same production. Right? So you are running into two risks here. Arrears risk and money going out of the system. So you have to be careful when you are giving the period. Always your period should be matched with the cash cycle. Right? Then again, operating cycle, how do you calculate that? Is equal to inventory turnover period plus debtor collection period. Right? Cash cycle equals inventory turnover period minus debtor plus debtor collection period minus creditor payment period, right? So how we calculate this is from the balance sheet, you find out these three items and do. Just to remind you on the inventory turnover period, which is average inventory divided by cost of goods sold into 365, right? Debtor collection would be average debtors divided by credit sales into 365. Creditor payment period equals average creditors divided by cost of goods sold into 365. These are the only three ratios we need to calculate working capital. Then I went on to say on a industry, manufacturing industry, we have the largest working capital requirement. Why? We have raw material, inventory, work in progress, finished goods, and debtors. Whereas trading business, we will have only finished goods and debtors. So second level of working capital requirement is at trading business. Then we have service business. We don't have any of these things, it's only debtors. So manufacturing sector needs the majority of working capital. Trading sector needs the second level of working capital, and trading needs the second level, and service industry require the minimum level of working capital. So that is all what we did on working capital. Do you have any question? You can ask me now. We'll take 5 minutes for the questions. Then we will start the break-even analysis. Any unclear part? Hope all are there. All are listening. Thank you, Jayani. What about others? I have some 12 people there. Two, at least half of the class, if you tell me whether you are clear. Okay, thank you. So now I will remind them to upload the presentation. This one. What is this? No, not that. Right, this one. So whatever we discuss, it is there. You can go through, and if you need any clarification, further clarification, you may ask me next time. All right. We didn't do this calculation last week. We didn't do that calculation, did we? Did we do the calculation? No. Okay. So you can take this and let's do the calculation. Can you see the presentation? Can you see it now? Right. So let's do the calculation. You have inventory. First year it is 9,500. Second year it is 13,500. Account receivables, which is the debtors, 11,500 and 18,500. Account payable, which is the creditors, 7,000 to 10,000. Sales, 75 to 100. The sales you have to consider entirety of sales as credit sales, right? Cost of goods sold, 52,000 to 56,000, right? These are the figures you have to work. Why I have given 2 years is you have to take average figures on all balance sheet items whenever there is a link between the balance sheet and the P&L on the ratio, right? So we'll take 5 to 6 minutes and we will work out the operating cycle and cash cycle. Don't look at the other part of the presentation. You work on that and give me the number, right? Just give me the number, whoever has finished. What is the operating cycle? What is the cash cycle? Okay. Now 11:05. Try to finish it before 11:10 or 12. You need to work on your speeds as well because in the exam you have limited time. So if they ask something like this, should be able to do it faster. Yes, Sanjeev, that's correct. 136. Chanak, correct? Sanjeev, you have to do the cash cycle as well. Jayani, check the receivable period. This one. No, Jayani, it is you don't divide the turnover. What is this 52 plus 56? So you have, this is correct, 11,500 plus 18,500 divided by 2, which is the average cost of debtors divided by credit sales into 365. Cost of goods sold is not associated with debtors period. Cost of goods sold associated with your inventory and creditors. Sanjay, what is this cash cycle? 8,500. No. Cash cycle is operating cycle minus creditor payment period. So you have creditor payment period here. You have done. No, you have not done the creditor payment period. So it should be 75 plus 61 minus creditor payment period for the cash cycle. Is it clear? Jayani, is it clear? What about others? Chanak, you are correct. Only 3 people are talking now. Can I see the results of others, please? Nilai, Patum, Ridma. So I don't get the cash cycle. Who is that? Yeah, did Dashin, did you get the operating cycle 136? Cash cycle is operating cycle minus creditors. So you need to work on the creditors. If you get the operating cycle, work on the creditors, right? Sanjeev, this is correct. This is 81. Maybe a slight decimal point change. So it is 81. This is correct. Darshini, work on this. Okay, good. What about the others? Patum, Ridma, Samanmali, Tarushi, Vishwa. You're very silent. Can I know your results, please? It can be wrong. That's fine. We will work it out. As long as you are not showing me the results, I won't know where you are. We have enough time to go. but I want everyone to be in the same pace. No answers? If you can understand, please ask me. Anyone who has an issue in calculating, though you don't show me? Vishwa. Okay. No, you have to work on this. Vishwa. Inventory 78. There's slight changes on your calculation. Can I know the formula you use? Inventory has to be average and the cost of goods sold. Right? Inventory turnover is 9,500 plus 13,500 divide by 2, then divide by 56,000 into 365. Check that. Okay, good. What about others? Right, others are silent. We have to proceed, but it's better everyone can do this and show me, because listening and waiting just won't go the knowledge into your head. You have to have hands-on things. So I'm proceeding for the break-even one. So we'll start the break-even analysis. What is break-even analysis? It is the relationship between, short-term relationship between volume, that is the production, the output, revenue, that is the sales, and the profit. We call it CVP analysis, cost, volume, profit analysis. We use this break-even analysis to take short-term decisions, right? If you want a definition, an analysis to determine the point at which revenue receives equals the cost associated with receiving the revenue. That means the point at which revenue of the business equals to the cost of the business. That means no profit, no loss position. An analysis to determine the point at which revenue received equals the cost associated with receiving the revenue. No profit. We are not talking about profit here. So that is the breaking even point. That means now the company has sold items enough to cover the cost associated with this sales, right? Then we have a term called margin of safety. That is the amount the revenue exceeds the break-even point. Like when you are talking about revenue or sales, we talk about actual sales and projected sales. It can be projected or it can be actual. Whatever above the break-even level. The difference between actual sales and the break-even sales or projected sales and the break-even sales is called the margin of safety, right? Margin of safety. That is the level of sales which can come down. Like though we project always improvement, but there can be fluctuations. So you should know what is the minimum sales you need to have not to make any losses. You don't need to make profits. If you don't make losses, then you save your business. In a worst case scenario, you should know always how much units I should sell just to float. That means I'm not making losses. It does not hurt me. But I'm not making a profit as well, but I'm covering my cost. So I can survive. If I'm making loss only, it will threaten my existence. Not making profit means that I'm not getting money for the future expansion, for my other work. But I am getting money just to float the business. I'm just covering the variable cost and I'm just covering the fixed cost. Very shortly, we'll look at those things in detail, right? So break even is the point at which no profits, no loss situation. Right? The point at which revenue equals the cost associated with receiving that revenue. That means costs are two types, variable cost and the fixed cost. Margin of safety is the difference between the actual or the projected sales and the break even. That is the level of turnover which can come down, level of operation which can come down without hurting, without making a loss. Use of break-even analysis, I just told you, for short-term decision making. CVP analysis is an important tool in short-term planning and decision making. As I told, it is the relation. We check the relationship between volume, revenue, and cost. Decisions like sales mix, pricing policies, all depends on CVP analysis. Like decisions like how many units I should sell. If my break-even point is at what, 100 units, I always should sell more than 100 units or minimum of 100 units. How many units must be sold to achieve a target profit? We'll look at that. Should a special rate be offered? If I'm not getting into my break-even sales levels, I'll throw a discount and try to cross the break-even. How will profits be affected if we introduce new products? Based on the profitability of new products and the incremental fixed cost when introducing a new product, we will decide, because break-even analysis is the relationship between volume of sales, revenue, and the cost. Right. Let me go to the board now. You can't see the presentation. Sorry. Very sorry. Can you see the presentation? Can you see the presentation? Can you still see now? Okay. So I'll go back to the presentation again. This is the presentation I was explaining. And break-even point is the relationship between break-even analysis examine the short-run relationship between changes in volume, revenue, expenses, and net profit. We call CVP analysis as well. Cost, volume, and profit analysis. This is the definition for break-even analysis, and analysis to determine the point at which revenue received equals the cost associated with receiving the revenue. That means break-even point is the point at which no profits, no loss situation occurs. Right? Then we talk about the margin of safety. The amount that revenue exceeds the break-even point. This is the amount that revenue can fall while still staying above the break-even point. That's the difference between the budgeted sales, if you are talking about a budget, and the break-even sales. So your sales can come down till the break-even point. It will not hurt you. Actual sales and the break-even sales. Actual sales can come down till the break-even. It will not hurt you. Then use of break-even, it is for the short-term decision making and planning. Short-term decisions like sales mix, pricing, all these things use break-even analysis. There's some more examples. How much units must be sold to break even? How much units must be sold to achieve a target profits? How should the special order be accepted? Because it is the relationship between volume, cost, volume, and profit analysis. CVP, right? How will profit be affected? Like when you are introducing a new product, we know that variable cost will change and fixed cost will change. So how you are going to adjust this, right? Right. Look at the board. So we have, this is the business formula we have. Revenue equals variable cost plus fixed cost plus profit, right? See, P&L, revenue direct cost, which is raw material, labor, electricity. We call the total of this as cost of goods sold or direct cost. Then you have gross profit. Then you have overheads, which is admin, selling, finance, profit before interest and depreciation, interest, debt, and net profit. Right? This is the P&L. These items are called variable cost. These items are called fixed cost. Right? Why this is variable? Based on the number of units produced, and sold, this changes, right? The amount of material used for the shirt is same, but when the number of shirts produced changes, this changes. When the number of shirts increases, labor cost increases, electricity increases, right? So this is related to the number of units we produce and sell. But these items, rent, factory rent, factory manager's salary, vehicle cost, LC charges, interest for the term loans and short-term loans and leases. Those things does not change with the production or sales. So these items are called fixed costs. You need to incur whether you sell or not. You have to pay your security whether your factory is closed. If the factory is closed, you will not incur these things, but you need to incur these items. You can't say to the bank, my factory is closed, I'm not paying you interest. So these are fixed costs. Whether you like it or not, you need to incur this cost if you have a factory. But if you produce and sell, only you need to incur these costs. So these costs changes with revenue. These costs won't change with revenue, right? So this is our business formula. See, revenue has gone here. Variable cost, which is the direct cost, has gone here. These items, which is the fixed cost, has gone here. Then you have your profit. So basically, business formula is the composite of P&L. You have changed the direction of P&L. Okay. So basically, it is the P&L. Let me break down again. What is revenue? Revenue equals price per unit into number of units you sell. Revenue equals selling price of 1 unit into number of units you sell. What is variable cost? Quantity you sold into variable cost per unit, right? Then we have fixed cost, which is fixed cost. It is not related to the quantity. Then you have your profit, which is not related to your quantity. Okay. We are assuming two things. Price does not change, it remains the same. And whatever you produce equals sold. Whatever you produce, you sell it. Right? We are assuming these two items at the moment. Right? So you bring this one to this side. Price into quantity equals minus variable cost per item into quantity. Make equals fixed cost plus profit. So this is in both items. So you can take out the quantity into price minus variable cost per unit equals fixed cost plus profit. Quantity equals fixed cost plus profit divided by, you take down, price minus variable cost per unit. You can bring the business formula like this, right? So this is called contribution. Okay, that is price of a unit minus variable cost per unit. That means the amount of money left to pay for the fixed cost, and if something more, it will go for the profit as well, right? amount of contribution each unit will give towards the settlement of fixed cost. That is called contribution per unit, right? I told you break even is the point at which profit equals this one equals 0, right? So break even quantity equals fixed cost divided by price minus variable cost per unit, which is the contribution. So whenever you want to find out the break-even quantity, how much units I should sell, this is the formula for you. Fixed cost divided by price minus variable cost, right? So as you saw in the presentation, how many units I should sell to get a profit of, we say, 10,000 rupees. That also calculated from this formula. When it is break even, we consider this as 0. How many units I should sell to get a definite profit? Then we consider profit as a fixed cost, 10,000. This is the profit I need. So fixed cost plus 10,000 divided by contribution per unit. So that time when we are finding out the quantity required to sell to get the required profit, we consider that profit as a fixed cost. We add that profit to the fixed cost and divide by price minus variable cost per unit. Right? Is this clear? Can you work out? Close your eyes and work this out. Try. Don't look at it. Work on your paper. Write the business formula. Then break it into quantity and price. Right? Get the formula for quantity. Okay. 3 minutes. Do it fast. Forget about this. I'm waiting. Finish it and let me know. Q. If not clear, please let me know. I will repeat. $35. Don't work out the sum which is in the this. I just want the formula. Thank you, Jen. You are the first to do. Three people finish. Anyone else? Okay, right. Then I will show you another thing. So you take this graph. This is quantity. This is value rupees. Right? Right? P&L equals turnover, direct cost, gross profit, fixed cost, PBIT, interest, net profit, right? So you start a business. From day one, whether you sell a quantity or not, you have a fixed cost, right? You have a fixed cost. Whether you sell or not, you have this fixed cost. Then you start producing. You start producing. When you start producing something, you have a variable cost going. One unit sold, one unit you produce, you have this much variable cost. Second unit, you have this much variable cost. Third unit, you have this much variable cost. Fourth unit, you have this much variable. Like that, when the quantity increases, variable cost increases. This part goes on. Why? This is linked to the production. Right? This goes on like this. Then we need to know the total cost, which is direct cost plus fixed cost. Total cost equals variable cost plus fixed cost. So in mathematically, when you shift a line parallel, basically the origin we just change, right? This is parallel. So how do we read this? Zero cost, zero production, we incur this much. That is the fixed cost. 1 unit you produce, this is fixed cost, and you have this much variable cost, right? It is similar to this one. So fixed cost plus variable cost 1. Then we take this point, and this is equal. So fixed cost plus variable cost 3, like that. So there is no difference by shifting this to this. We just shift the origin from this point to this point. This is the total cost line. We have fixed cost, we have variable cost, fixed cost plus variable cost gives the total cost, right? This is your total cost of production. Now we have something called, now we looked at this part, we looked at this part. Now we have to look at the revenue part. Right? This is the revenue line. This is the revenue line. You sell one unit, you have variable cost and a profit part. This is the smaller area is the contribution. What is contribution? Contribution is the amount we contribute to recover the fixed cost. Each item you sell, what is the amount we contribute to recover the fixed cost, right? So you go on selling. So your revenue line goes on like this, right? Whereas your profit cost line is above. Now we take this point. We have some quantity. We have a revenue generated this much. But your total cost is this much. Your revenue is this much. So this portion, this is your loss, right? Because you have, you see, if you consider only the variable cost, you have covered the entire variable cost. This portion you have covered, right? But the fixed cost, which is, this is a smaller portion. Make විතරයි making cover. This is the loss. This is the loss we have, right? So when you are going like this towards this side, the number of units you sell increases. Gradually your loss started coming down. Gradually it will come down. There will be one point Q, break even. At this point, revenue generated equals the cost associated with generating that revenue. Cost associated is fixed cost plus variable cost, which is the total cost. Revenue line crosses the total cost line. That is the point we call break-even point. At this point, zero profit, zero, loss, zero. See, when you start from this point, there is a huge loss. It is coming down gradually. It is coming down gradually. At this point, these lines, two lines crosses. So zero loss, zero profit. From here onward, any item you sell, it will generate a profit. It will generate a profit now. From here onward, it is profit making. Up to this point, it is loss making. Once you reach this quantity, is break-even point has reached. I'm not making any adverse effect. Okay. Then we spoke about margin of safety. This is the break-even point. I'm budgeting something like this. Quantity budgeted. Oh, actual quantity is this much. So you can reduce your operation levels or marketing till this point without making a loss, because this part is all profit you are talking about. So margin of safety is the difference between break-even point quantity and the budgeted quantity. or break-even quantity and the actual sales quantity. Break-even sales and budgeted sales. Break-even sales and the actual sales. That difference is called margin of safety. Right. Close your eyes and draw this on your paper. Graph. And tell me whether you get it. First of all, is it clear? Do you want me to explain anything? If not, please draw the graph without looking at the board. Is it clear? Do you want me to explain? You were not in the full mode. That's why I'm asking whether it is clear. You need the explanation. So I will do it again. Can you see the entire board? Right. See, P&L is turnover, direct cost, gross profit, overheads, profit before interest and depreciation, interest, net profit. Right? This is the variable cost. That is the cost changes with the number of units you sell or produce. Right? These are the fixed cost. That is the cost, whether you like it or not, whether you produce or not, you have to incur if you have started a business. So you take quantity versus value or cost rupees. Right? This is the fixed cost. You like it or not, you produce or not, you sell or not, you have to incur that cost. Right? Then you have variable cost like this. Right? Variable cost. If you produce 1 unit, this is your variable cost. If you produce 2 units, this is your variable cost. 3 units, it is your variable cost. 15 units, this is your variable cost. Right? With the number of units you sell, your variable cost increases. We assume sales quantity equals production quantity. Right? You say. In mathematics, there is a theory saying that you have a graph, you shift the origin, keeping the graph angle the same. If you shift it parallel, this graph parallel, right? These two are parallel lines, right? There is no difference. You have shifted the origin to here. See, this one is same here. This one same here. So what we do, 0 units, only the fixed cost, 1 unit, fixed cost here and the variable cost here. 2 units, fixed cost and the variable cost. So this is called the total cost line. Right? That is the total cost line. That means fixed cost plus fixed cost plus the variable cost. Then you have this one, this line, revenue. Right? This is your revenue line. Total revenue. So this is the first unit. This is your sales. This is your sales value. This is your cost. This is your profit from each unit. This is called contribution. Selling price minus variable cost per unit. That is the contribution from each unit towards the fixed cost. Contribution from each unit towards the fixed cost. Fixed cost recover. So you go on increasing your production or sales. So your loss started coming down like this. At this point of time, this quantity, no profit equals 0, loss equals 0. No loss, no profit situation is this. That is called break-even point. This is the break-even quantity. When you increase the quantity you sell from here, you start getting profit. See, your total cost is lower and revenue is higher. So you are getting profits. Right? Then we went on to speak about something called margin of safety. We say we have a quantity here, quantity A, which is maybe the budgeted quantity or the actual quantity, right? So margin of safety is the difference between the actual quantity sold or the budgeted quantity to be sold and the break-even quantity. That means if you bring down the quantity till this point, there is no loss. You are safe. You are not making any losses. So that is called, this one is called margin of safety. It can be quantity, it can be sales. If you take it from here, it is sales. If you take it from here, it is quantity. So this is the break-even graph. You have your fixed cost, you have your variable cost, you have your total cost, and you have your revenue. So there is one quantity where no loss, no profit situation. That is called break-even quantity. Then we went on to speak about margin of safety. That is the difference between actual or budgeted sales and the break-even sales. Actual or budgeted quantity and the break-even quantity, right? You can bring down your sales operations till this point without making a loss. That is the safety, right? Is it clear? Is it clear? Right. Can you draw the graph without looking at the board? Draw the graph yourself. Draw the graph and see whether you can draw it on your own. Right? Graph again, like here. Darshini, thank you. Right. Okay, let's go to the presentation. Vishwa, thank you. Right. So break-even point, these are the terminologies which I use. The point at which a company makes neither a profit nor a loss. Then we went on to discuss about the contribution per unit, the sales price minus the variable cost per unit. It measures the contribution made by each item of output to the fixed cost and the profit of the organization. Then margin of safety, a measure in which the budgeted volume of sales is compared with the volume of sales required to break even. Variable cost, cost of producing one extra item unit of output. Fixed cost, cost incurred in business irrespective of changes to the production of units. This is the equation we were working on, right? Revenue, fixed cost, variable cost, profit. We go on like this, then we did it. Then break-even point formula is quantity equals fixed cost divided by contribution per unit. Right. Then this is the chart we discuss. Right, you have it here. Quantity sold. This is the rupee value here. This side. This is the total revenue. This is the total cost. Fixed cost. I give the variable cost line also from here is parallel to this. Margin of safety, the difference between budget and actual, the margin of safety may express in units. So revenue we discussed, show the amount by which sales can drop before a loss will occur. Right? We have some examples, we do that separately. These are the limitations of break-even point analysis. That is, break-even analysis only talk about the supply. We didn't talk about any competition. We didn't speak about the absorption capacity of the market. We discuss, okay, whatever we produce, we sell. Market is unlimited. We sell. Both fixed and variable cost are fixed. We didn't consider fixed cost is fixed. We didn't consider any changes in the variable cost. We thought variable cost per unit is the same. It links to this point, efficiency remain unchanged. Volume is the only factor affecting the cost. See, when efficiency increases, variable cost comes down. Right? We didn't consider that one. We were changing factor was only the volume. Selling price remained constant. We didn't consider any discounts or anything. We thought this is the selling price. Whatever we produce, we can sell. Then we discussed saying quantity produced equals quantity sold. We didn't consider about the opening stock and closing stocks and whatever. We didn't consider. Time value of money, which we are going to learn very soon. Next week we will be learning. We didn't consider the time value. We thought the value of rupee today and tomorrow both the same. So limitations are only the supplier side we are looking at. Both fixed and variable cost are fixed. Efficiency we didn't bother to discuss. Production equals sales. Selling price is constant. Then time value of money not considered. Right? This is the main items. We have two equations. Okay. Where is the second one? Okay, we will do this. Try to do this example. Using the following data, calculate the break-even point and margin of safety in units. You have selling price of 50, variable cost is 40, fixed cost is 70. So calculate the break-even point. How many number of units you need to sell to break even? Calculate that. Very good, Sanjeev. You are pretty fast. Sanjeev, you can calculate the margin of safety. They say budgeted sales is 7,500. So what is the margin of safety? Just a small calculation. Yes, you are right, Sanjeev. Thank you, Jenny. You're correct. Break-even quantity equals fixed cost divided by price minus, Vishwa, thank you, correct. Price minus variable cost per unit. Dashini is correct, 7,000 to 500. Nala is right. Patum is right. Pridma is right. Then Narasingha, you don't have the first name. Break even is 7,000. What is the margin of safety? Okay, thank you. Right. So I have only 3 minutes to go. I will get the other. Okay, Chanaka. Thank you very much. So today we brush through the working capital. You will get the handout tomorrow, right? Then we started break-even point, the point at which no loss, no profit situation occurs, right? So how we discuss about how to calculate the quantity. We derived it from the business formula. Revenue equals variable cost plus fixed cost plus profit. That is the business formula. That is the P&L, right? Here profit is 0. So fixed cost divided by price minus variable cost per unit, right? Then when we went on to show this graphically. So we have fixed cost, we have variable cost, we have total cost. Then you have total revenue. The point at which the total revenue line and the total cost line crosses is called break-even point. Then we discuss about margin of safety. That is the difference between break-even quantity and the projected or actual sales quantity. That is the point. difference between actual sales and the break-even sales. Right? Then that is margin of safety depicts the amount we can reduce revenue or quantity sold without making any losses. Right? So we discussed these things, then we did one sum. So next week we will see how to calculate the break-even point and the profits. Right? Give me 1 minute, Jaini. Right? So we will discuss that. Jaini, your question is we use average of cost of goods and credit sales for no. Here we think about sales. Credit sale comes in when you want to see the cash flow. This is nothing to do with cash flow. We are theoretically calculating how many units we need to sell to get rid of losses, right? So we take the sales, whether it is credit sales or cash sales, we take sales. Cost of goods, we don't talk about. This is not a ratio. Why here all the calculations has been done based on P&L. Whenever we have variable the balance sheet and P&L figures both coming together to find a ratio, only we use the averages. Is it clear? Okay. Any question? Any other one? After break-even point, an organization can face even loss. Is it true? No. Once you have the break-even point, that means you have covered your variable cost, you have covered your fixed cost. Then you can't have a loss. Loss can happen if you get sales returns. This is only one way of evaluating. You calculate your break-even point and you say, okay, I sold it. But after a week, you get a big return. Then your quantity sold is not the quantity you use for calculation. Here we have covered entire cost. So there can't be a loss after break-even. Is it clear? If you don't have any questions, thank you. We will meet next week.